Hello, friends. I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's all great and wonderful. Here it is fantastic. It's a little bit cold. Single digits last night. It is pretty chilly in here right now, but that's okay. Today, I want to talk about a game. I should probably put this on the gaming channel as a review, but it's really not about the game. It's about me and my history with this game. Over the weekend, I started and finished a game that I was really excited about because it was one of my absolute favorite games on the N64, and it was Man Remastered. Man, when it came out on the 64, absolutely blew me away. I have always been a Nintendo person. I've never owned another console. That's technically not true, but I've always been Nintendo. I've never really bought into any other consoles. And so Shadow Man 64 came out near the end of the N64's life cycle. And at that time, it was mind-blowing to me. The 64 was defined by Ocarina of Time, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. That was everybody's, love child from that console. And it was the first, Ocarina of Time was the first, open world-ish game that I had ever seen or ever played like that. I say ish because it's not really open world. It's a very linear game, but it feels open because you can go anywhere as long as you have the upgrades to get there, right? And so you go through a dungeon to get an upgrade so that you can unlock a new area. But it's not it's not level based, meaning that you don't finish level 1, then move on to level 2 like old school games. I guess the original Zelda was that way. Actually, all of them have been that way. But this was the first 3D version where I got to really explore the world. And a lot of collection happened in that game, which was something that was new to me. I hadn't really played a collecting platforming kind of game. And Shadow Man took all of that and wrapped it in a really adult package. And this was the first time for me that I had played a mature audience's game on a Nintendo console. It was really mature audiences. There was cursing, there was blood and gore, there was, sexual tension. There was a lot of stuff going on that was whoa, this is not the kind of stuff Nintendo lets go on their consoles. So I was really shocked by it. Also, at that time, this was 99, 2000. I was in the Marine Corps. I was just in my 20s. And as a teenager, I was pretty angsty. I was, a huge, Nine Inch Nails fan. I was a huge experimental film fan. I watched every experimental film I can get my hands on. So the aesthetic of the game really spoke to me. That industrial, grunge, nasty, disgusting feeling. I was really into that. And so Shadow Man 64 was probably one of the first games I ever, hardcore 100%. I went through that thing, a lot. And 100%ed it because it was just, I couldn't let it go. It was so amazing. And now, playing it 20 years later, 20-something years later, more than 20 years later at this point, it was really fun. It was interesting to me because, one, the game looks bad, right? It's not a good-looking game. Your character is made up of 12 polygons with HD textures slapped on it from the remaster. So, the game isn't visually stunning. The remaster looks better than the original, obviously. They've done a whole lot with rendering engines. They've done a whole lot with the textures to make it look better, but it's still, 12 polygons. You look pretty stupid on screen. The voice acting was amazing. The sound design was amazing. It all works really, really well. And that, that translated wonderful to the new version. But I just mean the level design. You also have to remember Zelda 64 and then Shadow Man. At that time, the most I had done really with 3D gaming was Quake, and Quake was still very much a cube-based world where you just had cubes and ramps, and that was about it for level design. There really wasn't a whole lot of like obtuse angular surfaces. Shadow Man and Zelda both broke that up, and the world became much more real feeling, even though it was still just these flat polygons making up a surface. It still felt way different than anything I had played before it. And going back to it now, I can remember Shadow Man has a very similar feeling to Zelda, where you need to complete certain things before you can advance in the game. You need to do certain things, you need to get certain items, you need to level a certain amount before you can attack the next level. You literally can't even get there until you do the previous things. But it doesn't tell you to do those previous things. There are no quests in the game. You just have a vague idea of what you're supposed to be doing, and you go off into the world and do it. And it also has that Zelda progression where you'll get something in a later level that you can then go back through the previous levels or the previous areas. There's no levels. The previous areas and find more stuff because you have that item now. You have the hook shot, so you can go do the thing. In Shadow Man, you have the claws, so you can climb the waterfall. So there's a whole lot of backtracking in the game, and I love that. The other thing that I really like about it is that though by the end of the game you are much stronger than you were at the start of the game, that is all relative, because when you go back and explore again, you can still die. Like, you're not OP. You can't just walk through an area and ignore all the enemies like you can with a JRPG. By the end of a JRPG, you're god level. You can walk around and be completely unharmed in starting levels. This isn't that way. When you go back and you revisit an area, it can still be very, very deadly. And in fact, more stuff spawns in just because you are so high level. Not necessarily stronger stuff. You can kill stuff much easier, but there'll be more. You can take more damage. So it really messes with you that way. But aside from all of that, the game was great. My one qualm was they added back in. There were some levels that were removed from the original game because they didn't get them done in time, and they added them back in. And I enjoyed seeing the new content, but I think cutting them was the right choice, because all that new content did, it didn't really add anything to the game. It just meant there was new areas to explore, but they were very boring, like just kind of tunnels. There wasn't a whole lot going on. The levels in the original game, the ones that got shipped, that were complete, each one felt real. And we're talking about when you go through the schisms. When you go through the schisms, you're tracking down these serial killers. Those levels felt super unique, super creepy, twisted, weird. The two new levels just felt kind of like, okay, I'm just walking through this area, and there's really not anything going on. I just have to get to the end of the area. So I think cutting them was the right choice. Adding them back in was fine, but it also just added like a couple of hours to the game for no reason. So that was kind of weird. Oh, I also forgot to mention, all of the levels are this kind of winding, twisting paths, and it's really easy to get lost. Not necessarily like lost as in I don't know how to get back, but have I already been here before? Is this circular? Am I, and there's no map. You can't really, there's no min-map or anything like that. So just figuring out where you are can be a challenge, and I thought that was always really fun. But, again, here I am, 42 years old now, almost 43. I have 2 children. I don't necessarily listen to Nine Inch Nails all the time anymore. I still like Nine Inch Nails, and I still listen to them, to Trent occasionally. I really like the stuff he's done with Atticus Ross. But I'm not angsty. I'm not into that kind of I hate the world music anymore. And I basically don't watch experimental films. I still love them, and I would watch them. I just don't seek them out anymore. There used to be a show on Sci-Fi that was dedicated to experimentals and shorts, and I really loved watching those. I thought when I was younger I was going to be a short filmmaker, like that's what I wanted to do, and I really studied that stuff. I just never jumped into it. I mean, I guess I have. But the game took on a very different feeling for me now. It was more like this is fun through nostalgia, right? It was fun because who I was when I played this the first time, this game resonated with me so much. It doesn't resonate with me as nearly as much now, but I still really enjoyed the experience. I still really enjoyed the platforming and the collection aspects and the running around. And I did not 100% it this time. I 99%ed it. I'm not doing the last collect all the little things. It doesn't matter that much to me. But I did completely finish the game and, max leveled and all that sort of stuff, and had an absolute blast doing that. So it was just really interesting to see who I have become through the lens of that game. At 20 years old, boy, did it nail me on every aspect. It was like, holy crap, this is amazing. At 42, it's like, I understand why I appreciated this as a teenager, and it's still a very good game. The combat system's great, the exploration is great, the maps are great, the levels are great, the story is great, but it doesn't resonate with me nearly as much. It barely resonates with me only through the lens of nostalgia, and that was really interesting to see. It was really interesting to kind of remember who I used to be, right? Because I think a lot of times I've spent so much of my life trying to become who I want to be. I sometimes forget to remember where I was, because maybe I already became and surpassed the person that I wanted to be when I was 20. Maybe I'm already him. I don't know. All I know is it felt good to play it. So there you go. Shadow Man Remastered, recently played through on my Switch. Really loved it. Really, really loved it. Had a blast. That's what I got. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is kitsch. It is a noun meaning art, artifacts, or other objects of cheap or junky nature produced by the popular culture. His room filled with kitsch, lava lamps, Farrah Fawcett, and Cheryl Tiegs posters and plastic models of Frankenstein and Dracula. Kitsch. Kitsch. I haven't heard that in a long time, and I think I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but I thought we used to hard pronounce the T, like kitsch. That just had a soft H, like kitsch. Kitsch, not kitsch. I don't know.